Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, everybody, thanks for being here. Number 3, we're looking at the agenda. We do have a revision to the supplemental letter of agreement with SEH under 7A. Do we have any other changes? And if not, we'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as revised.
Make a motion, we approve the agenda as revised.
Second.
We have a motion by Mike and a second by Rick. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. Agenda is approved. Number 5, guests and open forum. Is there anybody here tonight that would like to address the council? All right, let's move on to number 6, committee reports, presentations, and awards. We'll start out with police committee.
Please try that. Police committee, we met on July 10th, 0700, like we always do. We talked the staff, the sergeant position, which the interview started last week, and that process is ongoing. And then just we had a current updating on the where we're sitting at for staffing right now. We do have the item on 7B on our agenda tonight, the emergency response unit JPA. So we'll talk about more there. I mentioned quite a bit about part-time employees last time, so won't go into that much more detail now, but we had more discussion on that. We also had the department rifle purchase, which is on our agenda for tonight as well. Just a quick update on the codification, and then also on the timesheets, which we're in the process of moving that over with the scheduling system. That is in progress. And then we had laser tag. Do we have laser tag? Even though it's screaming hot, those.
Yeah, it turned into also a pool splash pad. There you go.
So with that, so we had that was coming up. So, and then National Night Out, of course, is August 4th. We will have plenty of participation from the city there. And then Cones with the Cops is September 1st. And just to update, the squad cars have been ordered. So I got for police.
All right, any questions for Rick on police? All right, we'll move on to Public Works.
Public Works, we met on the 8th. Christine Jacobson presented us with a petition for crosswalks on Bank Street. We spent quite a bit of time discussing it and pros and cons, etc., but we made the decision to hold off until the country lumber property has been developed so we know where things are going to be before we get too excited about putting in new crosswalks. So that's on hold. We also discussed the street signs. They're not labeled southeast, which all the addresses in Becker are southeast. And rather than replacing the street signs with southeast on them, we just are going to replace them as we need to as time goes on, rather than spending a bunch of money for no reason. Recycle day, we've decided to cut it to 2 hours and give it a try, and if it doesn't work out that way, we can always change it back the next year. And then wastewater and water treatment, we have 7A and 7E, which will be talked about later.
All right. Any questions for Mike on Public Works? All right, personnel, we met on July 10th, and first thing we discussed was the program coordinator restructuring, which is under 7D. Brandy's going to talk about that tonight. And then one item was a reclassification of one employee that's on the consent agenda tonight, and that was about all we talked about at personnel. All right, move on to Park and Rec.
Park and Rec met last night. We talked about doing some mosquito treatment at the city park. They're pretty thick out by where they play disc golf. We're gonna give it a try and see how it goes, if it makes a difference. We talked about the new Sand Hill Park. We're looking to get the site work started out there, and we're gonna be looking at different play equipment ideas. And the horse trails out at the city park, they're not really being maintained by the horse rider groups anymore. That number has dwindled. So we're gonna gather more information and see what we want to do with that. That's about it.
All right, any questions for Robin on Parks and Rec? All right, move on to EDA then.
Excuse me, EDA met Monday, July 13th. We talked about property at Liberty and Highway 10. There's been some interest in it. The mayor has talked with that interested party, and they are still working on getting their thoughts together on what they want to do with that. The housing study is still not final, but it's coming along. They hope to see it in the next 30 days. And a market update, there were 29 homes for sale in our zip code last month, which is up quite a bit.
Yeah.
That's all I've got.
All right, questions for Robin? All right, we will move on then to board committee and consultant report. 7A, we have the supplemental, oh, sorry. What did I miss?
Fireboard?
Oh, I didn't see Fireboard on
I don't
here.
think we had it on there.
Oh. Yeah, let's do Fireboard. Sorry about that, Chris. False start, 5-yard penalty.
No more time for my emergency.
You can still start rotation early if you do a delayed call here.
Sorry, my fault. Forgot about Fireboard.
Sorry about that. So Fireboard, yesterday was all fire all the time, so, so we met yesterday at 5:30. We, of course, discussed the budget, which was approved, which we'll talk about at the next, for the special meeting. So we had gone through the budget, gone through the CIP again, and, just finalized everything there, and, did motion to approve to forward that to the, joint combined meeting there at 8 o'clock. Brief discussion about 4M funds and just discussion at that point. The air handling unit, that is in progress, and then, let's see, chief's items, the roof repairs were done. And basically, we're looking at the different ideas for the roof as to whether, we didn't replace the whole roof, so we said, okay, there was a 10-year roughly fix that was put on it, you could repair it, and then it would get roughly 10 more years out of it, so that is done, and then, looking to get quotes kind of more for the CIP to say what would a roof cost, and then try and, put it out 10 years and make sure it's on the CIP for that. The computer is, in the process of being ordered. I think they have one picked out. I don't think they've actually, ordered it yet. That's what I got there. And then, should we right in the special meeting?
Yes.
So, special meeting, of course, last night, we meet once a year as a joint body. And we approved we had the report from the chief on the calls, for the year. And then we approved the, proposed fire budget and the proposed, CIP. The budget, was approved with all the, struggles that everybody's having in budgets this year. We still approved a budget with a 2%, only a 2% increase, so, happy for that.
All right. Any questions for Rick on fire? All right, now, 7A, supplemental letter of agreement with SEH for well house number 1. Mr. Lisson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I have an RCA and Resolution 2667 for your consideration. This is for updates to the Riley Well House, or Well House number 1. It's located on Riley Avenue, ironically. And it's on the same campus as Carly Johnson Park, so that helps people realize where it is. The well house number 1, wells 2 and 4 go through that well house, and it accounts for approximately 850 gallons of our per minute of our daily production for the city. Well 4 is our largest producing well. So we've kind of been looking at this project for a couple of years, but because of the inability to operate, especially during irrigation season without well 4, timing has been kind of something we've been trying to wrap our heads around. So the well house was built in 1976, putting most of the equipment in it at the 50-year range. We worked with SEH to get this SLA that would outline the design work that's needed, so we can get plans and specifications that we could take out for bid when the timing is right for the city. The project would address aging process equipment, electrical controls, HVAC, the building systems to improve the reliability, maintainability, and safety and long-term operational performance of that well house. The bidding assistance and project management, if the design work is approved tonight, would come at a later date when we're ready to move forward with that as a city. Again, timing is kind of critical because we just can't be without this well house in the summer. So the idea would be if we get the design work done, we have those plans and specs ready, and then as things work out well, we can move into the next phase as needed. We did discuss this project with Public Works, and it was discussed with the council at an executive session. The cost for this work would be in our water CIP. We kind of planned for that already. And so tonight, I'd be looking for a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2667, which is a resolution authorizing staff to accept and execute a supplemental letter of agreement with SEH for design work for the well house number 1 update. And with that, I can stand for questions.
All right, any questions for Chris?
That's something we think we could get back by, would it potentially this fall? Would that, I'm assuming you take it off in a buffer season, so.
Yep, it'd be something, we would try to coordinate with our well house or our water treatment project and kind of see how those can align. Yeah, I know engineering talked about kind of the biggest factor would be, once we decide to move forward with the project, getting some of the supplies and things for the project might be the longest runway. So again, that's where that timing thing is critical. So if it's approved, we'll get our design work done so we kind of have that ready, and then we can kind of, as we need to, pull that trigger and go. So, and then just let her keep running for now.
Yep. Well, 50 years is pretty impressive.
That's pretty good. Yeah, we've done a little work along the way to kind of keep her going, but it's a good run. We'll take it.
All right.
President, picture of Gerald Ford in the, there.
Yeah, right. It's in one of the blocks, the time cap, so we can open it up and see what was here when it was built.
Yeah, the 300 residents of Becker are very happy to have this well. All right, any
I
other?
make a motion, we approve Resolution 2667, supplemental agreement with SEH for well house 1 design.
All right, we have a motion from Mike. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Robin seconds. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Good luck with that project.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have the Sherburne County ERU JPA, Chief Lindblom.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The Sherburne County Sheriff's Office operates an emergency response unit, the ERU unit. And as part of that, it's a kind of a select group of people who have additional training and entries and force combat and things like that, that are utilized in situations where maybe there's a concern for weapons or higher stakes situations. Some people might think of like a SWAT team. Essentially, that's what they are. They just call themselves the emergency response unit. We have utilized this emergency response unit occasionally within the Becker Police Department, but it's always been staffed by the Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office approached us about wanting to potentially open that up and allow for officers from the Becker Police Department to apply to join the emergency response unit. And so before you tonight for Resolution 2664 would be a joint powers agreement with the Sheriff's Office for that emergency response unit. Effectively, what it would allow is for members of the Becker Police Department to apply for positions on the team. There is a very extensive testing process that requires a lot of physical testing, firearms training. It includes an interview, and then ultimately it will come down to myself and the commander of the ERU team if an individual should be selected to be a part of the team. If selected and we had a member on the team, that member would be under the command of the Sherburne County Emergency Response Unit when out on a detail. They run on a standard operating procedure. They would be employed by the Becker Police Department and paid by the police department in the city. All insurance and things like that would carry over for their employment here. And then any costs incurred through overtime and things like that for call-outs would be covered by us. There is some additional training requirements that would be required. we would use our scheduling system to schedule, those trainings in with their normal schedules, so we wouldn't really incur much of a cost there. However, there would be a benefit to the department and the city to have members on that team, because they're receiving a lot of extra training, a lot of extra knowledge and tactics and operations that then they can bring back to the rest of the officers and team, and in turn have available to us for calls that maybe wouldn't reach the threshold of an emergency response unit response. So that being said, looking for a motion to approve us entering into that joint powers agreement with the Sherburne County Sheriff's Office for the ERU team.
Is that gonna take officers off your rotation as far as being on patrol?
So training days potentially could have an impact on a patrol day if it's scheduled. If they're off duty, and there's a call out, then they could respond. If they're on duty and we have road coverage, then they could respond to if they were on duty, they could respond to assist in that manner. It wouldn't ever put us in a position where we didn't have the road covered or we weren't at minimum staffing to allow them to go. So kind of like an on-call firefighter, if they're available and they are able to go, they can. If not, then they wouldn't be able to.
And potentially, we would have to pay potentially overtime?
Yep, so if they get a call out on a day off, and they are on a scene for a few hours, then that would be something that we would pay the wages for if they're out on that, yes.
So they're not paid at all by the response group?
Correct, yep, the emergency response unit wouldn't provide any pay there, so the benefit to us obviously is having that additional training for some of our officers, that knowledge and things like that they can bring back here, and then we have somebody with a lot of that experience able to be on staff here.
They also have to be selected for that.
Yes, and that is a very important part of this. The selection process is very extensive. So, at this point in time, the initial, this is the first time this has happened. This also is being done with Big Lake as well, so they have signed the joint powers agreement as well. And so to start, they were gonna offer one position to both of our agencies if we had somebody that wanted to join. And then see how that works with adding the officer from that agency. And then there's a potential that as we go, we could, they could open it up for other officers as well, depending on what our needs are and their needs are as well, so.
And if this doesn't work out for you, do you have an easy out or?
Yep, the JPA says we can withdraw at any time.
Okay.
Yep. And I'll make a note to you, so this is obviously too dependent on people wanting to be a part of that team.
That's what I was getting at.
So, when this process kind of got started and we were working through this, we did put out to our team, hey, if there's an interest here, this is an opportunity. So we have some interested people that right now wasn't the right time. So they're in the process right now of starting a testing procedure for the ERU team. We don't have anybody from Becker right now who is ready to step into that role. So effectively, right now, this will be a joint powers agreement, but we actually won't have anybody from the Becker PD on the ERU in 2026 for sure, so.
Okay.
We, at police committee, we had asked how many times, obviously you never know, but how many times historically, the ERU gets called out, do you remember that?
Yeah, I think they averaged 7 of actual call-outs. I think it was under 10 of call-outs. It does vary, they said it ebbs and flows, so some years or some months they'll go 3-4 months without having a call-out, and then they'll have 3 in a month. So that does vary, but it's not usually a huge time commitment. Again, it's reserved for those isolated incidents where they just need that extra help, so.
Technology-wise, equipment-wise, do we use stuff similar to the sheriff's office?
No, and so that, thanks for bringing up that point. So the cost for the overtime and things like that is kind of our ongoing cost. The upfitting portion, there is a cost, and it'd be right around $11,000. If we had somebody that was selected, we do have funds in our CIP for tools and equipment that would cover that. But that is because they do have some specialized equipment that would need to get purchased to meet their standards. So that officer would be assigned that equipment. Any transferable equipment we could transfer if somebody wanted to leave the ERU and join later. but there would be some costs there for some of the extra vests and things like that. Interestingly enough, my next agenda item will cover that portion of it, because the rifle that would need to get purchased for somebody for ERU, if approved later, that would meet their standards, because it comes into what the norm is for them too. So there would be a little bit there that we could have. But in general, like I said, that onboarding is a little bit more of a cost to us, but again, the amount of the training and skills and tactical abilities that person's gonna carry with them and bring back and have on the streets here every day, is pretty important as well.
Yeah, for sure. And they're not charging us for the training.
Nope.
That's just,
There would be an annual, I think it was pretty minimal. I think it was, I think like $3,000 or $2,000 annually, and that covered like some of the ammunition. They do an annual training up at Ripley. They cover some
Right.
costs with that, so.
Yep.
Overall, the cost of training for that and the amount of training they get is, far less expensive than a day of training for most of our trainings that we
Right.
go to, so.
for sure.
Yep.
Well, I just think this is great. I think it's a huge step forward in county and local agency relations, so I'm super happy to see this happening. I think that's wonderful. Any other questions for Chief? If not, would someone like to offer a motion on Resolution 2664?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Robin.
I'll second.
We have a second by Mike. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. That motion carries. All right, thank you very much, Chief, and you're up again for the rifles.
I am. Resolution 2665, presenting, is for a patrol rifle update for the department. Our current patrol rifle consists of 4 fully operational rifles that are in our patrol vehicles. We have a total of 6 patrol vehicles, so we were looking at trying to get all of our vehicles outfitted with rifles. There was a spare, however, we've had consistent problems with the rifles that we've had for these many years, including breaking stocks, malfunctioning when we're doing our rifle training. We've had a lot of problems with the optics, like the sights that we selected for them back when we purchased them, to include falling off during training. So we kind of just reached the point at which, if we're gonna add rifles, they all need to be the same. So when we set up a squad car and our guys and gals go to work, every car, every piece of equipment in there is the same. And it didn't make a lot of sense to do like for like when we've been having so many problems. So we took a look at the rifles, and staff kind of thought that a full refresh would make more sense. We'd have reliable equipment then that we could have for many, many years to come. That being said, we reached out to some other agencies. We did some research with local agencies. We pinned some of our, like the Chiefs Association and things, looking at what type of rifle is commonplace and some good vendors. Ultimately got a lot of referrals for Alex Pro Firearms in Alexandria. Supply a lot of law enforcement in Minnesota. Key for them was their customer service. So one of the things we talked about at police committee was we had looked at having a spare rifle just to have, but Alex Pro is really good with customer service. So if there's any type of failure or something that happens, even situations where if an officer would have like an officer involved shooting and that gun needs to get taken as evidence, they will come down and they'll replace that until we can get it back. So that was really nice to see. Right now, we don't have any type of warranty or customer service with our rifles that we have now. They would be a 5.56 caliber rifle. Nothing too crazy that like difference. It's a rifle. It does the same thing. The current ammunition that we have, magazines would be able to go between them. It's got a shorter barrel. Very common now to have that. A lot of our entries and things like that where we're using rifles are in residences, hallways and things like that. So having the shorter barrel is more beneficial. Also ease of removing from the squad car. Ultimately, Alexandria or Alex Pro Firearms was able to supply us with 6 rifles. The cost was $7,200. And then we'd also reach out to them to get the items on the rifles that we have. Their quote was a little bit higher, so we reached out to Kiesler's Police Supply. That's who we purchased our Glock handguns from a few years ago when we did our big handgun upgrade. They've been really good to deal with. And one of the nice things about Kiesler's is they've always been really good about doing buybacks. So we have our current rifles. We also have our old rifles from before our last rifle upgrade that have just been collecting dust in the evidence room. And then we also have a bunch of old shotguns that were identified as less lethal, like beanbag round shotguns. It's not something that the department utilized or has utilized and doesn't intend to. So they were willing to we took that and said, hey, we've got all of this. Would you be willing to buy it back from us, essentially? And they agreed to that, and we're willing to do a buyback of all of our old equipment. And therefore, Kiesler's would be able to supply us with the accessories for the all 6 of the rifles. Total for that was $6,700, and then they offered us the $4,270 for trade-in, which brings all of our accessories to about $2,400, which was pretty nice. We got a really good deal from them on the buyback, much more than we thought we would for some of the rifles. So all in all, we're looking at a cost to replace all of our department rifles and accessories at about $9,600. We do have funds available in our CIP tools and equipment line item for that this year that we would be able to utilize. And then again, in my world, who maintains the evidence room, I'm gonna have some more space because I'm not gonna have a bunch of old stuff occupying space in there, so. That's
Get rid of the muskets?
But yeah, the bayonet attachments that are on the end of some of
Yeah,
those.
that's
Yep,
nice.
Yep. So a little bit of house cleaning, and these would be, like I said, I feel like the reliability here was the key, and it was frustrating at a lot of our trainings trying to do our rifle qualification and have things break, and we just kind of can't have that. So we anticipate that these, as long as they're maintained, which we have a great firearms, a couple of firearms instructors and armorers who clean them and take care of them, that we'll get many, many years out of them. So.
My only question, Chief, would be, was the price difference between APF and Kiesler's enough? Because it seems like you really like APF's, warranty work and all those things. Now it's kind of like you're putting 2 companies onto that gun, and if we had to ship them for work or anything, was it a significant enough amount of funds to?
Yeah, it was several $1,000s difference in the markup. I will say, so the accessories from Kiesler's aren't a specific, it's not their company. So they're just outsourcing. So the optics, for instance, they're a Vortex product. APF and Kiesler's both sold them.
Got it.
APF's markup on them, I think probably just a smaller company, was much higher.
Got it.
And I had reached out to the individual companies as well to kind of say, hey, law enforcement agency purchase. And they were right in line with what Kiesler's had quoted us, but obviously the benefit here is Kiesler's will do the buyback.
Yep.
So we would have got similar prices if we had gone out and bought them individually. It just was way easier going through Kiesler's.
So it's not proprietary to
No,
Kiesler's?
not
Got
that,
it.
no.
All right, anybody else have any questions for Chief on their rifle purchase? If not, we would entertain a motion for resolution 2665 for the rifle purchase, the buyback, and all the goodies.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2665.
Oh, second.
We have a motion by Rick, second by Mike. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. The motion carries.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Thomas is here for the program coordinator restructuring at Becker Community Center. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. So I'm requesting the approval to restructure the Becker Community Center's current coordinator model from 3 part-time program coordinator positions to 2 full-time program coordinator positions. We currently have a vacancy in the Adventure Zone program coordinator position, which gave me the opportunity to evaluate and consider where I wanted to go with that. Using this as a good opportunity to potentially restructure. So, upon review, my recommendation is to eliminate that vacant position and redistribute responsibilities and increase the 2 remaining coordinators from part-time to full-time. So if you're not familiar, currently we have an aquatics coordinator, an adventure zone coordinator, and a fitness and special events coordinator. These are all part-time positions. So I, again, would move to consolidate those into 2 full-time positions. One of the reasons being that after evaluating, I looked further into it and saw that aquatics and adventure zone, that would be the primary consolidation there. They complement each other very well. When aquatics is slow in the summertime, because that's our slowest time of year, the Adventure Zone program ramps up with the kids being there all day. When Adventure Zone slows down in the school year, aquatics gets a little busier. So it complements each other as far as the workload. It's a very seasonal position. Beyond that, I think it would promote efficiency, meaning that rather than having 3 separate part-time positions that all have to communicate and parents sometimes have to go between multiple parties, we have 2 people who will collaborate, provide coverage for one another, and share responsibilities based on what the facility needs at the time. One of the things I would like to do with the increase in hours for the special events and fitness program coordinator is add more youth programming to her plate with special events and, again, youth fitness programming. After doing some data, we learned that 33% of our membership is people ages 0 to 18. So with 1/3 of our membership, we should probably be doing a little bit more youth programming to accommodate those members. With this transition, I would also look to develop strong lead positions. We already have that position, but really work on growing our leads so that we can help the coordinator in that role be more admin related. They're helping with the billing, they're communicating to parents, they're handling disciplinary action, and less of the rotating between activities and doing snack time and things like that. So we would improve our lead structure. Again, that wouldn't be anything new, that would just be part of what we're already doing. But I also believe that this would be a good improvement for recruitment and retention, because a full-time position tends to be a lot more attractive to the employment market than a part-time position. And we've heard that over the hiring process. I was a part of this hiring process for the Adventure Zone program coordinator last year, and that was one of the biggest things for feedback, with not getting high-level candidates to even apply because of the position being a part-time, non-benefit eligible position. And we were very fortunate to end up with the candidate we did have for the year. And then, so one of the nicest features here is also the restructure is financially beneficial. So going into, if this is approved for the remainder of this budget cycle, 2026, we're looking at $9,794 in savings for the remainder of the year. Looking ahead to the 2027 budget, with this restructure from 3 part-time coordinators to 2 full-time coordinators, we're looking at a savings of $24,797. So either way, we're looking at a savings with this restructure. There's efficiencies, more consistent leadership in our department, and of course, making it a more attractive position down the road if we ever do have to rehire. So, do we have any questions?
Have you taken into consideration the cost of benefits?
Yes, that is included in that calculation.
Are you not increasing the salary of the 2 people that you're keeping?
They're still gonna be on the same the same scale. They're just getting 8 extra hours a week. So their wages wouldn't increase other than getting more additional hours.
Which should wash with the 2 positions versus 3. But the cost of I'm concerned about the cost of benefits and what that's gonna do to your budget.
Well, yeah, we discussed it at personnel, and the 25,000, I'm rounding up a little bit, because that sounds really good. That is inclusive of all benefit costs as
Yep.
well. Because the 3 positions, none of them were benefit eligible.
Right, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So even with that, we're gonna be saving this.
Yeah, if it's just wages alone, it looks like it's a $42,000 savings, but then when you factor benefits in, it's a $25,000 savings.
Yeah, it seemed kinda too good to be true when we started too,
That's why
but,
I'm questioning it.
yeah, no, I know what you're saying, but yeah, when we looked at it, it's like, wow, that's significant.
Yep, and we worked with finance on that, and calculating those numbers and pulling the accurate information. And so, again, if this is approved, you'll also.
That's using our step system.
Yes,
Yep.
yep. So you'll see, if this is approved, you may see some of this in the budget meeting as well.
Okay.
Both the current employees are interested in staying and going part or full-time?
Yes, they're very excited.
Oh, good.
Yes, very relieved and very excited.
Good.
Excuse us for the shock, we just don't get a lot of, everything is on the positive side of the pro-con chart, so. You had me at saving $25,000, so.
Great.
Awesome work, thank you for your creativity.
Yep.
And thank you for providing all that detail too, because of course I'm reading through, I'm going, okay, what's the math washout? I was like, oh, look at that, there's a chart, so. That was.
So if there's no more questions, I would request a motion to approve Resolution 2668 to restructure the Becker Community Center Program Coordinator roles from part-time to full-time.
All right, anybody wanna make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Robin, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Rick, is there any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. Motion carried, thank you very much. All right. Mr. Knutsen's up with the SLA with SEH for the WTPD.
Well, I'm hoping those warm fuzzies you had with that cost savings carry over into the investment that we're looking at in a water treatment plant. Good evening. This isn't a new topic. It's kind of an uncomfortable topic, but it's something we've been wrestling with for several decades right now. I know the last couple of years we've really ramped it up and having conversations at work sessions and with staff. Water has been top of mind for many, many years. So in 2019, the council approved land purchase and we used some direct bonding to put in wells 7 and 8 on the former Olson property out on County Road 24. After we got those wells into production, the water quality wasn't what we anticipated it to be. And a surprise came along in the form of CO2 in there as well, which pulls some of the sediment in solution out, can give us a little bit of a tinge, and also the manganese quantities in those wells was a little bit higher as well. When we tried to blend that water together, it was a little bit cloudy, it was a little bit orange, and we received immediate feedback from our citizens what's going on. So we've taken those wells offline. We've not used them, and we've looked for solutions. The past 2.5 to 3 years, we've studied everywhere we can look for water. We've done test drills everywhere. We've talked to countless farmers. We've done residential samples in the township as well. Most recently, after our last work session, I had a farmer reach out through a council member, and we immediately went out there. They were going to vacate one of their irrigators. We looked at that. We were concerned about nitrates, and nitrates were registered at 10.6. MDH levels are 10 and below. Anything 5 and above, we have to monitor as well. So it's just not a viable option for us to treat that. So we kind of pulled that one off the table. But the process, like I said, we've talked to anyone that would listen, and what we finally ended up at is, with some reluctance, was using well 7 and 8 for a site for a future water treatment plant. It's not new to the area. Big Lake is going through this right now. Monticello is starting on their water treatment plant as well. So what we're recommending tonight is for us to enter into an agreement with SEH to do design work for a water treatment plant. The design work would get us to plan ready and bidding documents they would carry us through, should you want to go that way, to bid layout, and that would be brought back to you likely in February or March of next year to start construction at next year's time. So obviously, the financial burden that comes with this is pretty extensive. Greg and myself have met with Mark and Lori to walk through the preliminary numbers. The SLA cost is not to exceed $932,000, sorry, $942,500 for this first phase. Those funds, what we talked about was taking money out of the reserves in the water fund, as well as some of the PFAS settlement money that we've got to pursue this. In doing so, if you should move forward tonight, we'll continue to work on long-term funding as we get through the phases of going out for bid, selecting a contractor, going through construction. It's likely a 24-month process from start to finish to get it there. A lot of levers that we would need to pull. This is obviously the first big one, so we can move forward with it. And the $942,000 isn't all at once, right? It'd be phased as they go through 30-day payments, just like all the other work that we do with them. So it'll be a slow bleed as we come through the payment on it. But I think it's a critical next step for us to secure our water future, so. And with that, there's a lot of information out there. Like I said, we've had several in-depth meetings on this, but I can stand for any questions if you have them.
Any questions for Phil? So if we built nothing, added nothing, currently, we would still need this.
We've been in a water deficit since I was on council when I started in 2002, and nothing's changed. We've grown, we've added businesses, we've added rooftops, and we've not added to our water supply system. So yes, we've been running deficit. The water guys, this time of year, that last 7-day stretch, 10-day stretch, that's stressful for these guys because they're just like, we're one fail away from having a watering ban of 0 exterior water use, no lawn watering, things like that. So yes, we've needed this for many, many years. And I feel good. Staff has done a great job of trying to turn over every rock and find any opportunity. We've been very fortunate. You could say we're unfortunate because we've never had to treat our water. 15 years ago, this would have been a cheaper alternative, but we've been fortunate to have decent water quantity. We just don't have enough of it.
Yep. All right, any further questions? If not, we're looking for a resolution or a motion on resolution 2666 for the SOA with SEH for our water treatment plant.
I'll make the motion to approve that resolution.
We have a motion from Rick. Do we have a second?
Second.
Robin seconds. Do we have any further discussion? I would just say thank you. I know you've put a lot of work into this, and all the water staff and public works staff and SEH. I went back and looked at the study that was presented, and it's thorough. It explored every option. So I'm very comfortable and just want to thank staff for all that work.
Yeah, you bet. I mean, we appreciate it, and it's a full group effort. I mean, budget and finance, we met 6 weeks ago when we first started talking this. Their wheels are already turning on all the opportunities. I know we're going to work through budget and finance as far as long-term planning and how that's going to work out. So we'll have future work sessions as well as the finance team continues to dive into what the best options are for the long-term impact of the plant. So.
And like you said, I mean, we've been trying test wells for years. I mean, it's not like we just went, oh, let's just do this. I mean, we've been trying.
Yeah, our primary engineer, Chris Larson, who's working with us from SEH, said Becker has invested more in trying to find water than any community he's ever worked with. So it's not for lack of trying. So again, I thank you for recognizing that. We appreciate all the things the staff is doing. But this is, I think, our most confident next step. It's a big hurdle, but it's going to give us results. You know, we're feeling a little bit worn out and defeated because we've just not been able to land anything, but this is going to give us what we need. So,
awesome. Any further discussion? If not, we'll call the question on resolution 2666. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, state no. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then it looks like you're up again, Mr. Knutson, for the Edgewood Street improvements.
Yes, we've started the project. We've got a change order request coming through. It's for a water connection. It was an omission when we first started talking through it. When the Luann infrastructure improvement in the grant was offered, we were looking at potentially capturing a sanitary line under Edgewood for future developments on a farm field over there. the cost of that and just looking at that and do we need a lift station and all of that just didn't seem feasible for us to do something like that. We didn't pursue looping that water system. Currently, the water infrastructure is fed from I'll call it the southeast portion, current Luann Drive, and feeds upward. What we would recommend, and again, kudos to our water team for seeing the plans and calling it out. If we can loop the system, anytime we can loop the system and backflow if we need to, it's a benefit for us. So the water main right now runs on the north side of Edgewood. And for us to do this work, this change order would call out that we would take that water line, tie into it, and bring it basically to the south edge of the right-of-way of Edgewood Street right now. So if Luann Street does get improved, which we anticipated it will, we'll be ready to tie into that, so then we can loop all of that development on Luann Drive. Better service long-term. If you've got any issues, you can gate it off one side and fill from the other side. So it's the right thing to do. It was just an omission as we got together on the design originally. So with that, tonight, I'm looking for a movement on change order number 1 in the amount of $25,430. We did get this from our contractor. SEH did vet this through. Because of the quantity pricing, it's in line with what we would have done originally. So feel comfortable with the change order, even though I don't like change orders, but.
Makes sense to build in the redundancy. And Brandy paid for it.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that.
She won't give up her funds that easy, so.
All right, so we're just looking for a motion on change order number 1 for Edgewood Street to loop the water main.
I'll make that a motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Mike. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Robin. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Do you know, how long will that close that end?
That should be a day project.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll be able to shut that down. We're gonna try and, a meeting with Greg this morning, we're gonna try and isolate some of these things. We should find out, where are we, Tuesday? By Thursday at the east end of Edgewood, with the storm sewer coming in, if they get their shipment where it's scheduled for Thursday, they'll start doing work either the end of this week or early next week, so that'll kind of bottle up what we're dealing over there. We'll try and get better messaging out, even if we gotta put some door knocks out on like Woodland Court, they're gonna be isolated. As we come through with this, we'll work with Shepherd of Grace or those neighborhoods. But just encourage everybody, Tony does a really good job of taking any information we can and posting it. We'll use Facebook and our website to try and direct everybody there, because it's very fluid, so we'll try and keep those things going. But if anybody has any questions, they can call City Hall, we'll work with them. But this shouldn't shut it down too much. The storm collection is going to make a mess of Edgewood.
Sure.
So anybody who lives in Nature's Edge, your best bet, get to Brenda, just cross over Brenda and keep it moving and stay off of Edgewood if you can.
Yep.
So,
Perfect.
thanks.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Mr. LaRue is up with the consent agenda.
Mayor Colbinger, City Council members, items for review, approval, or adoption on tonight's consent agenda include the hiring and termination report, authorize the Tuesday, July 21st, 2026 payment of claims as presented. The claims listing has been provided to the City Council as a separate document and is available upon request for public view at City Hall. The total claims are $389,312.14. Authorize electronic transactions as presented in the May 31st, 2026 Journal. The journal has been provided to the City Council as a separate document and is available for public view at City Hall upon request. Approve the minutes of the July 7th City Council meeting. Approve the minutes of the July 14th Budget Workshop meeting. Approve pay app number 1 in the amount of $320,123.24 to Capital Paving for the 2026 Street Improvement Project. Approve the update to the Community Development Administrative Technician job description. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions for Greg on the consent agenda? If not, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Rick, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Robin, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. That motion carries. All right, anybody else have anything for tonight?
No, I do not.
If not, we would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion by Robin and a
I'll second.
second by Rick. All in favor of adjourning, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. Meeting's adjourned at 5:49. We'll take a brief break and we'll come back to talk about the governmental funds preliminary budget. Thank you, everybody. I didn't get to read your
What? Oh, yeah. I'll make sure this
Yeah.
But we have, we're designing a handout. It's mostly state, yep. Very important times. And not stop.
Cool.
But for general, think about township house, no help period.
Well, yeah, I mean, some, don't they have to show you?
Yeah, so that's a lot of.
Most of them are.
Yes, no, they are. So we've been stopping.
It really doesn't bother me that much. Yeah. Make sure it's well taken.
Yes. Well, no, we haven't, we've had one injury crash.
Huh?
Lance Burda.
Oh, yeah.
But here's, I mean, the prevalence of the.
You know, I don't know who it was.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, he took off.
Yes.
He kept on, he did look back. Sure. He was after that,
Waiting.
he went off.
No, and that's pretty consistent.
Most I got is to think what color the chairs were. I had no idea. Well, we were worried about the water.
Water my grass? I mean, a rock.
No, I'm not. I just realized he's anybody
Do it without Gary, Greg. That's a little spray. Did you see that letter? Which letter? Oh, I'll tell you later. It was funny. All right, we're gonna call the executive session of July 21st, 2026 to order. And we're gonna start out with the governmental funds preliminary budget. We did a special meeting last week for the CIP, and now we're on to this fun stuff. So Lori, you're gonna start us off?
I'm gonna start you out.
All right.
Here we go. All right, we're gonna start out by running through a couple of the assumptions. I think if we go through those, it'll lay some of the groundwork, answer a few questions ahead of time. So first of all, I just want to thank all the budget managers. We are using the My Viewpoint tool again for budget workflow. It works really well for input and review. All that data that goes in there pulls down into the review formats that you're looking at. So all that data has been reviewed all the way through Greg. Everything you're going to see tonight has been through that level of review. So thank you to everybody for your work in doing that, for all your feedback, and the process works fairly well. So I just want to thank the folks that have all that input. A couple data points, what you'll see in the budgets tonight. We are using a wage input assumption of a 3% increase plus any step and grade changes that would be scheduled for people on our normal DBM ratings. Couple data points, the consumer price index right now is at 3.5% for everything, for all items through June of 26. So we did just get that update and incorporate that into this kind of just for a data point of where things are at. We do have a compensation study in progress with Flaherty and Hood. We have had to make preliminary wage assumptions, and so we put that 3% in there because we won't have that data back in time to really get to the finish line if we don't put something in there. So thanks to Budget and Finance and other groups for kind of helping us kind of get to where we wanted to start for wages. From a benefit standpoint, I think it's important to understand that when we budgeted healthcare for 2026, we budgeted an assumption that healthcare was going to go up 8%. That was the cap that we had at the time that we put budgets together initially. When we renewed our benefits, we actually received a 10.8% decrease, which relatively unheard of. We had gone out for bid. We had excellent usage data. We were and are a very attractive candidate for the groups who were bidding on our healthcare options, and so we ended up with a reduction. We did not at that time push all that reduction back into the budget, and so when you look tonight at how we're budgeting healthcare, it is going to look a little strange when you compare last year's budget to this year's budget, because we didn't push all that detail back into all the budgets. So we are budgeting for the premium cap that they quoted us when we accepted last year's reduction. That cap is a 15% increase. So everybody's healthcare line is going to look a little odd because we did not push some of those details back into everybody's line items. So you'll see that. Hopefully that helps to explain that. If you have specific questions, we can certainly look at them in detail and respond. But that will look a little bit strange. We also have projected assumptions on what plans we think people will choose based on what they have chosen for this year. That's another pretty big difference. We had some people who chose to forego or waive coverage when we had originally assumed they would take a family plan. So for budgeting for this coming year, we've been stuck a little bit closer to what we think people are going to choose consistent with what they have taken this year. So that also doesn't quite jive with budgeting a 15% increase in healthcare, but we are budgeting a 15% increase in our premiums. Just kind of the way it lines up looks odd. Overall, we're also recommending a 4% increase in other benefit costs. We haven't received any renewal information yet from our broker. It's too early in the process, so we're just having to make some assumptions about what's going to go in there. So that is what is in there for that, including, an increase also of 15% assumed for a Minnesota paid family medical. Again, don't have any quotes back, don't know what's gonna happen. We know there's a cap on the state plan, but the state also hasn't released their data on what's gonna happen with their plan. So we've tried to be conservative, and put in an increase for that as well. Other cost categories, just to keep in mind, we do not have taxable market value data yet. So really, we are only talking tonight about dollar value levy. So don't have any impacts on what that does to our tax rate yet. So we're just kind of, the county takes their time, as they should, and so does the Department of Revenue. When they're evaluating the Shareco plant. So those are items we just don't have data on yet, and those will be a little further down the line. You'll see for interest earnings that we are planning less conservatively for 2026. Interest rates and investment balances both are outpacing our 25 numbers, and we really, even though we have a few big items that we know we're gonna spend on, we don't see a huge decrease in our cash balances, at least for the next 12 months. So we're gonna plan a little bit less conservatively, put some additional interest income in to all the budget funds that have cash. So you'll see stronger interest for the general fund, for EDA, and for golf, because those three funds carry cash balances, so they get interest allocated to them. And then we're not gonna cover water or sewer at all tonight, but just so you know, plenty of things going on in the background on those two budgets as well. So especially on the industrial side, we have several meetings with LPI during the process to keep them informed and to kind of collaborate on where we want to land on a few things. So, so those things are all happening as well. Any questions on the assumptions?
Any questions for Lori? Makes sense to me.
All right, then I'm going to talk through the next page. We're gonna be on page 4. Part of this will look familiar because part of it you saw last week when we talked about CIP planning. So those blue tabs under capital improvement levy, we've already covered. We looked at those in a good level of detail. So tonight we're gonna be looking at the general fund, the community center, and the EDA. Golf detailed budgets will be presented on August 5th along with their CIP. So we're not gonna cover them tonight, although we do not anticipate that they would be looking for an operational levy. So I don't anticipate anything on this page would change when we present the golf budget. So if we just walk through what you're gonna see tonight, you will see the detail of the general fund levy. You will see the detail of the community center levy, and I will just point out on this front page, because it's nice to talk about great things with the staffing changes that are being proposed. You do see a decrease in the community center portion of the general levy. So that's running all the way through. We also, at this point, we'll talk about EDA tonight, and you'll get some information from Jacob, some options we have on the EDA levy and what's happening there. But right now, this is rolling up with a reduction in the levy for EDA. So if we get all the way to the bottom, the total levy amount that this level of detail would roll up to would be $10,751,000, and that is a 2.41% total dollar levy increase over 2026. And again, plenty of details to go through, plenty of places you can have questions or make recommendations or changes. But just to give you an overview of what you're gonna see tonight, we like to tell you what we're gonna tell you before we tell you, so.
Sounds like one of my lesson plans from school.
Oh, you've heard that before, okay. Well, I am married to a teacher, so,
I figured he helped you on that.
right,
Good.
right. Okay, any questions on the overview before we move on to the detail? Okay, so we're gonna start with general fund revenue. We'll be on page 5. Again, the first couple lines here are the tax lines, and you'll see all the detail tonight that rolls up to where those first two numbers come from. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that right now. We'll run through some of the other things. When we look at other revenue items, one of the items that we budget for is the Mid-Continent franchise fees. We're recommending that we reduce those in the budget plan just based on the trend. Those are franchise fees that they pay us relative to how much they collect for cable. And so obviously that is not a trend that's increasing. And so we think it's best to really plan that a little more realistically. The next line item to cover is the building permits for the city. That's a significant increase in revenue. You will also see when we get to the expense side, a significant increase in expenses for that item. So those two things are linked. We changed the fee schedule for building permits earlier this year when we switched our business model for how we provide building inspection. And so you will see that on both sides of the ledger, revenue and expense. So that is really a flow through of making that change. Fire relief aid, this item we budget and it's a 100% pass-through. So the number is different than last year on both the revenue side and the expense side. There is no change to the levy for what's happening with fire relief aid. The next item is police aid. We did increase our revenue budget for police aid. We're typically trying to go on a 2-year lag to what we've gotten. So 2024 would be our base year. We got $100,894, so we are planning $100,000. It is totally a state number. We won't get the number until, hold on, we just looked today. What was the date for police aid?
Oh, it was September and it's paid out October 1st.
There we go. So we won't actually know the number for 26 until September.
Of this year or next year?
This year for 26. So for 27, that's why we do it on a bit of a lag. But we
So
don't
this
want to
one-
let it get too far behind because then we're levying for money that we don't need.
So this 100,000 that we would budget for potentially here, we won't even collect potentially till September
October
of
of
next year, October.
2027, yep.
Okay.
The other one to note on this page, local grants, the SCORE grant dollar value that we will collect as revenue has gone down significantly, as has the expense side. So again, just making those two things correspond to how they're really gonna flow through. That grant has been restructured, and so we only expect that we'll recover what we spend, and we no longer spend for the grinding. The county is gonna pay that part directly. The final one to note, we don't have any dollars offsetting our levy budget at this point for electric generation transition aid. We do have some dollars in the general fund reserve for that we have not applied to this budget at this time. So that's a discussion item that you guys can have as we go through the process of where we want to end up or what makes the most sense. On the next page, page 6, just to note, I know it's something that we talk about every year, the BAC charges for services. Typically, we have gotten money from the township to help defray the cost of the BAC. We do not plan that as revenue. If it comes in, it is upside, and we have not planned that as revenue again for 2027. So that's consistent, but we do see other charges, other collections are higher than they have been, so we did plan an increase in revenue, but not based on the township. The next section is community center charges for services. That's the revenue that the community center takes in based on their memberships. I'm not gonna cover that in detail here because Brandy is gonna cover that when she goes through her detailed section on the community center, so we're gonna forego that discussion at this point and move on to page 7. Interest, you'll see on page 7, we are increasing the revenue amount for interest in the 2027 budget, and that is just we don't need to be as conservative as we have been in budgeting that because we see our cash balances through next year will still be strong and interest rates have continued to hold. So we're we're gonna be a little less conservative, on that item. And then, overall, you'll see a total revenue, including levy, this is the total revenue for the general fund increasing 4%. So as we go through the next, couple of pages, and we get to the bottom and it says general fund expenses are gonna be an increase of 4%. So just to give you a baseline of where we're starting the budget process, I think that just kinda helps, set the stage for what you're gonna see. All right, any questions on the general fund revenue at this time?
We get the 4,800 for special assessments. What do we typically don't special assess, I guess. What is that for?
That is typically for snow removal, weeds, things
Oh,
like
that kind
that.
of special, oh, okay.
Okay, very good.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks Lori for kicking it off. Good summary of things to expect. So I will start out on the expenditure side. I'll cover just kind of the starting point of general government. I'll really hit on the admin and finance. So I'll try to make this part as fascinating as possible since it is the finance piece of the budget. Mayor and council, really straightforward. Not much of a change there, only $100 overall, so went down 0.2% from 46.1 to 40, little under 40. 4647, so not much of a change there. Administration, they're really just changing with step and COLA increases, so 3.5% up to 203,207. No real changes in allocations there from prior years, so overall admin increased 3.4%, really just on the wage side. Flipping the page, starting off with finance, personal services, really there, 1.8%. No change in allocations on that side. And then really just some of the health insurance just follows based on the prior year selections. So you see the decrease, but just some changes in selections there. Yeah, overall, total finance up 1.6%. And then professional services, that kind of falls under this bucket. Some slight changes kind of just within the buckets, within the other services and charges. Overall, very minimal change, but we did right-size legal fees. We had it at 75,000 for multiple years. Brought that down to 55 just to be more in line with, you know, prior year trends, but also leave some room for things that might jump up. Well, I'll touch on line 158 on the accounting fees. That's a significant increase, but we are planning for the intersection project with TKDA. We should have federal fund expenditures over 750,000, so we will expect a single audit. That's around $5,000 for that single audit, as well as we do have some of the required GASB 75 and 87. 87 is the lease standard where they evaluate our leases. 75 is our OPEB, so it's our other post-employment benefits. They have to do an actuarial just to prove what our liability could be. So those costs in there as well. And they're not every year. They kind of you have to do a more in-depth study every other year for those. So that bumped up the costs there. And then insurance on line 167. Really, that's just a 8% increase from the prior year. So. You know, based on where we're currently sitting with some of our modifiers, we felt that 8% was a good starting point based on, and always good to reset. Our 26 actuals kind of reset with the building and some of the other changes where we're at. So we took the current year actual and just added 8% for that. So overall professional services were really consistent with the prior year. Gosh, and then I'll just touch on the next page, just on the cemetery. We do budget for a contribution to the cemetery of $6,000 annually, so we'll continue to budget for that.
Have they ever expressed, I mean, I think it was 5,000 13 years ago, and then we bumped it to 6. I mean, have they ever, because I know it's one of those things we're constitutionally required to do is, you know, if they ever say, throw us the keys and go, we're out of here, it would fall to us in Public Works or whoever to, you know, have to go take care of it. So have they ever said,
I actually
Use a few
talked
more.
to one of the people once, and they were very happy with what we've given them. And they literally said it was enough.
okay, well. All right. That's one of those things that's always scared me, that, you know, it would cost us probably a lot more than $6,000 to, if we were ever given that responsibility. So I want to make sure, I want to make sure they're happy. If $1,000 was needed or something, I was okay, well, but no, if they're happy with 6, that's fine.
Okay, otherwise, any other questions just on those few departments? All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Shannon to cover City Hall.
Good evening. Starting with wages, Lori went through the assumptions. Our department gets to see a decrease of 2.6%. For supplies, we did increase the general operating just simply because of inflation. We anticipate that to go up. We did reduce tools and minor equipment by 50%. A lot of that, again, has to do with the renovation of the building and replacing a lot of items. Conferences and training, we increased that by 21% because we want to stay smart, and we're going to training. Credit card fees, we reduced those. The credit card fees that are in the general fund are only credit cards that, or payments that are made for, oh, gosh.
Building
too many of
permits
them.
or?
I'm like,
Compost cards come through. Miscellaneous credit card fees get charged here, and we don't get miscellaneous payments very often through PSN anymore. Most of them will come through as an ACH. Some of the bigger ones that we used to collect through PSN come as an ACH now, and we don't pay credit card fees on those.
we have some mobile food unit permits that come through on the credit card, so there isn't a whole lot of fees there anymore. Telephone, that has went down because we have transitioned to Teams for that communication. And then utilities, we did bump that up just with the size of the building. There's indicators that it's gonna cost more for heating and cooling. And at the end of the day, the budget expenses for this section go down 1.4%. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you very much.
Now to talk about planning, everyone's favorite subject. Okay, maybe just mine, but so in the budget this year, there's a couple of things that I'll note for planning. General operating, we've kept that kind of the same for quite a while. We don't generally exceed any of that, but in there just for tools or other equipment that we may need. So that stayed at 1,000. You'll notice on conferences and training, that stayed flat this year as well. So that includes a number of our APA, Minnesota APA conferences, some of the LinkedIn Learning, prior learning that are online learning modules. And then one thing that you'll see in here that's a little new is the GIS, LIS. So we do quite a bit with our GIS systems, and so that consortium is in there as well. Professional services, again, stayed flat, just as needed for land use applications is noted in there, or if there's other legal or other grant writing that come up throughout the year. Publications, you'll notice that, just as a reminder, we increased that a couple years ago. Publication dollar amounts have increased, the cost for that, so again, kept it at 2,000. That seems to be fairly kind of in the right category. So you'll notice in 2025 is around 1,700. The one item I wanted to note that actually increased a little bit at 4.8% was the dues, licenses, and subscriptions, so by 1,000. Our GIS software does increase every 3 years. So in '27, that'll come up for another renewal. It was more of a substantial increase due to some of their licensing restructuring. So, but that's spread across 3 different categories, so Public Works, and I think that's across 4 different ones. Communication, which covers some of it in this. So it's split 3 different ways, but that's why you're also seeing an increase in the dues, licenses, and subscriptions. And in addition to some AICP stuff for Austin, as he's working on that. And then we did include this year what's called D5 render, as we're gonna start working on the frontage corridor, so that works in collaboration with some of our CAD and SketchUp software as we do some more of the modeling. So it's 3-dimensional imaging software. And then you'll notice that SmartGov, so thing with licensing is they never seem to decrease, they always just increase. So SmartGov increases as well, and that's in line with our contract that we've had with them. So those are the increases there, and generally what you're seeing is that $1,000 increasing for 2.3% for planning. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
For general operating, I mean, I know we kept it at 1,000 there,
Yeah.
but, you know, looking back at '24, we did $105 for the whole year,
Yeah.
493. This year, we're at 190, so if you double it and say,
Yeah.
you know, we're just round up a little bit, call it 400, I mean, I don't sound like $500, but would we
could.
consider going to 500?
We could. A lot of times it's just in there as a contingency. I don't foresee any major things that come up this upcoming year. Some of the things we had in the past for some equipment for Karen that she uses pretty often in her office, just the treadmill that's used, it's a pretty regular thing, so. But if that's of interest to you, I don't have an issue knocking it down. It won't really hurt our bottom line from a planning standpoint.
Well, it'd help $500 is what it'll do.
So. So I'll note it on here, we can do that, but again, I don't anticipate, we don't have a lot of major expenses.
Is there anything now that we've taken over or, you know, changed the permitting thing? Is there?
As far as like internal, no. A lot of it still, again, works through SmartGov. Karen does a really good job with that. Software-wise, she has what she needs. A lot of it's in spreadsheets and within SmartGov itself. So I don't foresee any sort of those tools. And a lot of the paper and stuff has gotten reduced quite a bit because we don't use paper stuff anymore. So. Any other questions?
Any other questions for Jacob?
Mm-mm.
All right, thank you, sir. Oh, yeah. Hey, stick around.
Sorry, I'm missing the other packet with the order, so that's my fault. Building inspection. So a couple of things to note. Again, this has a general operating, to your point, Rick, if that's something that council wishes to reduce, you can. The fuel and transportation, we knocked it down to 200, and again, that's for code enforcement. So if we use the staff vehicle for enforcement visits or as we drive around for other uses, that's where that 200. So it went from 1,000 down to 200 because we don't have a full-time in-house building official anymore. The other ones to mention are, you'll notice a reduction in conferences and training. Again, we left 1,000 in there because Karen does do stuff with that, and so leaving some money in there for some trainings as they come up and arise to keep her up to speed. This is what Lori mentioned on the contracted services. So Karen does an awesome job of keeping our records really well, and again with SmartGov, that's made it much easier to know where we're standing on our financial amounts. And so we took an average of $22,000 a month for the next year because we did a look back at about 15 months. Karen did. That was an average monthly. Some months were way less, some months were way more. For example, I think in June we'll have like a $40-something thousand invoice from Rum River. So if you average that out over annually, that's where that $264,000 is coming from, and that's 80% of the total fee. We do see 85% on some of the bigger projects, like if they're a school or if they're a delegated project like some of the industrial ones, that may be 85%, but 22,000 is 80%, which is an average for the year. So that's what you're seeing. That's why the big increase in contracted services. And then dues, licenses, and subscription, again, increase related to SmartGov. And that's it for building inspections.
All right, any questions there? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, police time, starting kind of at the top, personnel. Obviously, the bigger increase there was due to our addition of the sergeant position there for wages, so you'll see an increase there. Some of the nice follow through from the work with our health insurance, you can see there following through. Like Lori had mentioned on the wages side of it. Overall supplies, no changes there. We're operating with the same funds as we did last year for that type of equipment. And then other charges and services. The biggest impact that we had to look at this year was for contracted services with the police remodel. In addition, there were some costs that were taken on for contracted services. We now have service plans with our bi-directional antenna that we added last year, that system. We've got service contract for our new interview and recording system. We have the new scheduling software that you've been hearing about throughout, and then some additional fees with some like printer company, pretty minor there. But those increases altogether was why you see the increase in contracted services. Cleaning fees too, obviously bigger building, takes longer to clean, cleaning fees went up a little bit, so we tried to grab onto all those and include those in that, and that's why you see the increase there. Safety budget, we brought down a little bit, that is identified as safety in here, I'll call it community engagement. That was developed when we did safety camp, that was a little bit more of a financial project for us, so we were able to take a little bit off of that line item. We still do, as you're aware, a lot of community engagement events, but we've worked really closely with our partners at the community center as well to help facilitate some of those so that we're not using as many funds to host those events. Everything else carries kind of along. Dues and licenses, just a minor change there, just with some licenses that we didn't need anymore. That covers all the officers' licenses, so that does ebb and flow a little bit depending on the year that they renew. So that being said, that's what I have for police. Any questions? Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay, so on the bottom of page 14, you'll see the fire budget. That is consistent, I believe, with your budget that was approved last night. So that is in here.
I'll just touch on, it may look unique, but we did confirm, sorry Larry for jumping in, the fire relief contribution at 146. So the fire relief did transition to the state plan, so the state will now submit those supplemental benefits directly to them. But for accounting purposes, we're required to record them on our books. So you'll continue to see the revenue and the expense within our budget, even though we're really just gonna record the total amounts, but the funds will go directly to the state. So just more of an FYI on how it works with the system.
And that's the 2%? Yep. Okay.
The state can do a better job of handling that.
All right, streets and parks. So as a taxpayer myself, my goal is always to keep the numbers as flat as possible. Goal being maintaining all the infrastructure that falls under the title of Public Works and doing it effectively and in the mind of the taxpayer so that the dollars that are entrusted us are spent wisely.
Yeah.
Street side, public works side, personnel services saw a modest increase, $838 from 26 to 27, so less than 1%. Lori's kind of alluded to healthcare cost savings being a help in that area. Under the supplies section, saw a slight decrease of $500, so again, less than 1%, 26 to 27. Couple areas to note, line 351, general operating. We have an asset management program that we use to track and all the maintenance that we do for all the assets within the Public Works Department. We originally were with one company, that company was purchased, and the new company kind of, as Jacob alluded to, they seem to always kind of change things. So originally, our original set, we had a set number of users, and we were grandfathered in, and now to get an unlimited number of users so we can expand it to maybe other departments within the city, we'll move to an enterprise fund. So accounted for an uptick to do that, and then that is spread between all areas of public works. So parks, streets, sanitary, so domestic and industrial, water, and storm. And then line 352, fuel transportation, I decreased that slightly just based on our annual average spending over the last, I look at least 5 years back, I have further back, but, so we've been spending less than what we've been budgeted for, so just pulled that down a little bit. And then other services and charges, the final section, again, I didn't put a little note there. A couple areas to look at with that, line 374, repairs and maintenance for storm. I did not dedicate any money for that asset management program to storm previously. So because we do also track storm assets with that, I did add some money in there to help cover that cost. Line 380, our compost site. So the yard waste site did change. Lori kind of alluded to that. With discussions last year with the county has changed how they handle those funds. They now do the bidding for the grinding. They coordinate the grinding with the contractors, and then they pay the invoices directly. So more of the money is staying with the county, and they're handling more of that part of the work. We still get SCORE funding that'll help cover some of our costs at the site. If there's control work that we have to do with the gate, electrical costs, internet. So we're still getting funding, but having enough money in the budget to help cover the costs that the SCORE funds that we get do not cover. And then line 381, our recycle day, I just decreased that a little bit based on just what we've spent over the last 5 years, the annual average. So again, that one, we get SCORE funding for that. The SCORE funds have covered the majority of those costs, so just trying to keep that in line with what we actually spend.
What caused so 2024 on cleanup day there, we have 11, almost $12,000. What caused it to go from 12,000 to 4,000? Was it just grants, or was it like moving out to Northern Metal, or what caused that big drop?
Northern Metal was a big part of it. So they were able to take things and defray costs that we used to have to pay for just because it's on their site and or services that they can provide as far as processing some of the recyclables. So yes, that was a.
Well, one of the things that they did was, I think we used to have to pay for batteries, and Northern Metal takes them
Last year, they took batteries for the first time, yep.
at no charge,
Yep,
because they get money for them.
win for us though, yeah, yep. So, no, not only is it a great site to have it, there are added benefits, so. So overall, the budget for Public Works, you see a difference of about $61,000 decrease from last year, or 4.4%.
That's what I like to hear.
So most of that is
Get a
the
sticker.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So most of that is the compost, though, right? That's the 60,000. So
Yeah, and I mean, the healthcare benefits too is a big part of that shift too, so, yep.
yeah, 30,000.
Still get a sticker.
Yeah.
Take it. That's better than a kick in the pants. All right, parks. So the overall operating budget for parks in '27 will be up slightly from '26. It is good to note that we did add a park here starting in '26, so Sand Hill Park is now part of our park system. This will add some additional maintenance and repair duties for Public Works. Overall, the budget, operational budget spending in '27 will only slightly increase from what it was in '26, even with that added park. If we look at the first section, personal services remain flat, '26 to '27. Lori kind of alluded to why that stayed that way. Under our supplies section, we'll have about a $10,000 increase from 26, so that's overall about 17%. Line 416, general operating, that went up about $1,400. Again, that's to account for moving to the enterprise version of OpenGov for our asset management. Line 418, landscape materials, we did increase that by $8,500 or 28%. When Phil went through the park CIP, we had several line items in the park CIP that were covering turf and or irrigation at parks. What I struggled with was, I felt like, almost like you'd have to try to create a project when there wasn't one that needed to be done. A lot of turf maintenance and irrigation repairs we do operationally as needed. So we took those out of the CIP, and then we increased some of the money we have in the landscape materials to account for those items for either irrigation repair, maybe added seed, added black dirt, those kind of things. If we need to do that, we would do it as it comes available. We wouldn't plan a big project out of our CIP. And then we also, with Jesse's addition, he was a landscape in his background, so we did add a little money for some colored wood chips as well, because he likes to, around trees and things, instead of using the ones that we create when we grind trees up, he wanted it to be a little more appealing to the eye, especially in parks. So we did add some money for that, just for trees. So like at the park at the BAC, it's, the chips now are a little more presentable than what we used to use in the past, so. And then we're also accounting for fertilizer and weed control, and then field paint, and we do have, the usage at the BAC is very strong, so just wanted to make sure we have enough funding to make sure we can paint all the lines that are necessary for all those users, so. Next section, other services and charges. We have an increase of about $12,900, so that's about 11% increase from last year. Telephone was one area that we increased. It's quite a bit. So we do have internet that we use for parks at Public Works itself, but we also have internet at Colbinger and City Park buildings. So accounting for the charges we get for that, we do charge some of the cell phones that we have for Public Works staff to the parks budget and also the streets budget. And then there was some costs related to going to the teams, calling and things, so that was worked into that line item. Line 430, refuse and sanitation. We did see we increased that by 6,000. I increased that by 6,000, which is about 35%, just to kind of meet what our average spend has been for both garbages throughout our park system and then our rental of the portable toilets. So, we added archery parks, there's another one there, and then just going through, and we have quite a few. We'll add one at the BAC before youth baseball starts to accommodate like the school ball when they use those fields. So there's some movement and things with different, with those porta potties, so just accounting for those costs. Line 432, repair and maintenance equipment and vehicles, just a slight increase there, kind of looking at what our average spend has been, and then obviously nothing related to parts is getting cheaper. So with costs going up there, just trying to account for that and make sure we're prepared. So again, overall, the operational budget for parks in 2027 saw an increase of about $23,000, so again, 4.4%. So pretty happy with trying to keep her where it was, especially with we adding a park. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Any questions for Chris on parks?
Nope.
All right, thank you very much.
Nice to see you again. So I'll talk about the community center budget. First thing you might notice is that the levy has decreased by $27,377.53 from 2026. So as I work through this, I'll note a combination of increased revenues and cost saving adjustments that contributed to that reduced levy. Starting on page 17, line 22, increased revenue source. We started that Becker clothing line that you may have seen with the Snuffy's Landing shirts and sweatshirts and stuff. So we've seen a revenue increase on that, anticipate more as we continue to update that line and sell those products. We're working on a few different things right now, so. Line 24, our seasonal user fees, that's our memberships. We are pacing really well, anticipating to end this year above the 2026 goal. So we adjusted that for 2027 to reflect that. Line 26, program revenue, just decrease that line to show based on past trends in 2026 pacing. Line 28 is another fun one. We have been seeing a increase in building rental revenue. So we adjusted the 2027 goal to reflect that. That's possibly, we're guessing from Civic Rec streamlining the rental process, making it a little bit easier for people just to go ahead and go online and book. Also, collecting fees has been a big part of that because we're collecting everything on site right away before booking rather than having to hunt people down and up and down, losing rentals and whatnot. So that's a nice update. 2020 or line 34, the Adventure Zone program revenue. Since I've been involved in Adventure Zone, we've taken on more students than they have taken before. And so that increased revenue just from more students paying daily tuition fees. We also raised the rates in Adventure Zone effective June of 2026 based just to make us a little bit more competitive with the programs in the area. We are still quite a bit less than a lot of the area programs in the area, but so that can contribute to that increase as well. So the 2027 target shows an increase to reflect the rate increase and more students based on pacing. On the next page now under expenditures, you'll see right away on lines 68 and 69, the wages, that would reflect that from, so 100% of the special events and fitness coordinator was being coded to the part-time wages, which is line 69, and that was 50% of those wages were reallocated to the full-time scale or full-time line on line 68. So you'll see that line is now a combination of myself, the admin technician, and 50% of the special events and fitness coordinator. So you'll see that increase and decrease on those two lines. Line 75 will also show the health insurance adjustment with 50% of the special events and fitness coordinators' health insurance on that line as well. Line 85 is eliminating the general operating line and consolidating it into contracted services. That's just because I can code everything into other categories that I haven't used that general operating and don't prefer to use it. So consolidating that into contracted services where it is more often used. Line 106, utilities, we decreased that by 15,000 due to past trending usages, and upgrades to more efficient equipment leads us to believe we'll continue to stay on track with that. The next page, under maintenance, one of the big things here is you'll see an increase in the wages for part-time, so line 125. We terminated the contract with the cleaning services that we were using and went to an internal cleaning model, similar to what was done years ago at the community center, just due to performance issues and not working out for us. So we went back to hiring internally. So you'll see on line 150 that we had a reduction in the contracted services and then was reallocated into the line 125 wages to compensate for the staffing now. Next page, under aquatics, page 20, aquatics. Similar to what you saw on the last page, lines 168 and 169, an increase, actually that's in addition, the full-time line item that wasn't there before, so we added a full-time line item for the new full-time program coordinator. And 50% of their wages is coded to that line. So you'll see a decrease from the part-time and then an increase into the full-time. Under Adventure Zone, lines 206 and 207, similar thing there, where you'll see an increase in the full-time and a decrease in and full-time again wasn't there prior to this. So that was added for this.
A question on Adventure Zone. So I know as we because we show an increase in revenue, so as we've increased in revenue, we start having to add more people, I guess. Do we think we got that covered
Yeah.
for as far as additional staffing?
Yep, so we operate at a ratio and we calculate based on that, but, because also just to note, because we're not a licensed or certified program, we try our best to stay within a 1-to-15 ratio, which is standard, but we can fluctuate a little bit outside of that too, as needed, just because we're not a state licensed program and we're a recreational camp, so we can accommodate within a little bit of reason on that, but yeah, but we stayed at that 1-to-15 the best we can, and that is reflected. So yeah, we were on Adventure Zone. And then lines 218 and 219, same thing, eliminating the general operating and consolidating it into the supplies budget in that case. Page 21 under fitness, same kind of concept across the board. We added a full-time wages line, so that is new, and that is 50% of the special events coordinator and fitness coordinator's wages, and then 50% of the insurance on line 242. And then we adjusted the line 249 to increase program supplies. That looks like a substantial increase, but you can see over the past year's trends that that's a pretty steady usage. So we increased it to actually show that. The large majority of that budget is the wipes that go towards cleaning the fitness equipment. And so we're just kind of right now exploring different opportunities for that maintain the life of our equipment and then also are easy to use and convenient. So hopefully we can reduce that a little bit too. But that is what we have spent in previous years on those.
Oh, so we spent $8,900 in 2025 actual, and our budget was $1,000?
Yes, correct. So, and you can see that in, I think, previous years too. It was quite a bit of a jump from what we have spent in the past on those wipes. And that is the primary expense in that line. There's very few other things. So those wipes can be pretty spendy. And then lastly, you'll see the Freedom Days budget. So line 272 holds the city donation, that's the donation that the city contributes to Freedom Days, and that's just being, as a group, we agreed to consolidate that down into the Freedom Days Entertainment Fund, which you can see below, just because that's how we processed the donations this year, and that's where it went this year, and it just makes sense that it's all in the same, instead of having extra line items. So, again, overall, the levy for 2027 has decreased by about $27,000. So, do we have any questions?
Another sticker.
Yeah, I want a sticker.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so I'll touch on just a few more items, or I'll touch on the general fund, kind of the summary. Then I'll have Jacob touch on EDA, and then I have a few just remaining items. But page 23 just takes all that information that we just talked about and just puts it into a nice summary there. So starting at the top of page 23, you have the revenues. They're showing that 3.1% increase in the property tax levy on the general fund side. See some, adjustments within some of those other categories, but overall, total revenue increase of 4%, up to 7.8 million. Going down there into the different departments, we have general government. They're increasing $14,000, a little less than 1%. Public safety, that's where with, really driving the change on the building inspection side, I have that increase of 13.4%. A little over 300,000. Next page, 24. Public Works, Chris and his sticker decreased 4.4%. Good there. Culture and Rec, on the Park and Rec side, increase right around 4%. And then Brandy, a lot of great strategy there on the community center at 1.7%. So total Culture and Rec, or really the park system as a whole, increase of 2.3, and then overall expenditures of 4%. So it gives you a nice summary of all of that data that we talked to rolled into a nice little summary chart. So with that, with no questions there, I'll turn it over to Jacob to touch on EDA.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I don't know if there'll be a sticker for this one, but we'll have some robust discussion.
Robust
No,
discussion.
I don't know.
Oh,
Maybe it won't be robust,
Put on my
sorry.
seatbelt.
Clearly, I'm choosing good words tonight. I said bottom line when I meant material. Anyway, all right, EDA. So generally not, there's a number of changes that I want to touch on just related to the expenditure side. You know, Rick, to your point on the supplies piece, if, you know, general operating and tools are sitting at 1,000 each, we haven't spent that over the last couple of years, so if that's a reduction, again, it won't, we don't have major expenses coming up this year. So those are some spots you could reduce if you would wish to. And that's on the general operating tools, so rather than 1,000, you could go to 500 as well. So they're set at 1,000 for now. Again, it leaves us some breathing room should something come up. On the legal fees, we bumped it just 1,000. We didn't use any in 25, but that's one of those areas that we don't know when something might come up. So we want to leave funds in there, even outside of the general legal funds. Conferences and training, so you'll notice that remained flat. That also includes some stuff for Karen as well, in her position, and then some bleed over into Austin as well for Ellers. The biggest parts are on this contracted services, professional services, promotion. So you'll notice a bunch of numbers. One says it increased 239%, but another decreased by 100. So there was some shifting around of funds for this. And this is related to the use of EDA reserves and the 212 acres for. So the EDA reserves assumes 50K of that would be used to fund the AUAR update. So if you recall, that was adopted back in 2023. It needs to be updated through 27, so it can be adopted again at the beginning of 28, so first quarter of 28 sometime. Statute requires those be updated every 5 years to remain valid. 50K, we got the quote from the firm who did that previously, which is, again, is they have a lot of efficiencies they could pick up should they take this on. And again, 50K was what they would anticipate for updating an AUAR. The other piece to this is we got a couple of different quotes for the EAW for the 212 acres. So statute requires if we're over a certain number of units on a property, so in this case, for cities of our size that don't have certain comp plan requirements that statute details, which ours doesn't, the maximum number of attached units that you can do without doing an EAW is 100. Unattached, excuse me, and attached is 150. So it's not a very high threshold. And you have to consider all of the land that you own adjacent. So it's not as if you can just plat a portion and say, hey, we only have 25 units. The statute requires that you include every single piece of land that you own.
As if it were fully.
Correct, as if it were fully developed. So in order to give us, even though we don't have a developer on this property, it helps to the marketability of the property by completing the EAW in advance and having it finalized. It's a big benefit economically. So, and it reduces a number of, you know, it's a 5 or 6 month time frame to go through that EAW, so you're also reducing that timeline. 40K is.
Do an EAW without having a project right in front of you?
Yeah, you can. So we've got proposals concept-wise, but if you don't, what you do is you take the minimum, what do you call that? The minimum density under your zoning code. There is a trigger point for an EIS, but yeah, I think we do have a conceptual layout for this that contemplated 200 and something units. So if you were to utilize that, you could, otherwise it would be to this. Greg, were you gonna say something?
I was gonna say, the other thing that's putting this on for next year is we have those lots on Jade. We have city property on Jade that got improved this year. We will rope those in so we can sell those. We can't do anything with those until we do the EAW because we can't look at those lots in isolation because we own 212 acres next to it. So we're just gonna look at the whole thing. And then we'll be able to sell those lots.
Thank you.
Okay, but because it's close enough to what
Yeah.
a project would be, we think it's gonna be housing, we think it's gonna be roughly X amount of units, it'll come in pretty close, so because of that, it's
Right.
close enough to do an AEW and not a AUAR.
Yeah, we talked about doing an AUAR. The issue with there was an AUAR out there previously from 2004 for River Bend. It was never updated. The reason a lot of these development projects have been able to come through without doing them is because they're under the density that was contemplated by that entire development when it went in. It also included, I believe, some of the Hammer property. We discussed whether to do an AUAR, but where are the limits? How much land are you gonna include? Is it city-owned property? Is it also a number of private development properties? It's also more time extensive, and it has to be updated every 5 years versus the EAW, which doesn't. Yeah, good point.
Right. On that AUAR, will we look at, I know another community was sued over theirs and the courts, is that applicable to us? Is there something additional we're gonna have to do with our AUAR?
On the AUAR, no, I think it's a standard update. Again, the one quote we got was from Stantec, who did it before. They're very aware of the statutory requirements. Ours was one of the first ones to include greenhouse gases, GHG, which was a mandated requirement added about 4 years ago. There's also a couple other things that they did include in this they had recognized kind of public engagement and those things that are more substantial.
Okay.
Because they have gotten more substantial.
I think the one that, I'm thinking the one you're referring to where they got sued, I think it was because they omitted, or was it the greenhouse gas where they used a really, really low number?
It may have been, I'm not
Something, it
sure.
was, very, like we're talking, like, I think it was like 90% and they said 2% or something like, I mean, it was,
Yeah, there was a
right,
discrepancy.
huge, yeah.
My point being, if we needed to spend a little more to make it more defensible later, I would,
Okay.
be in.
And that's good to know, because the other discussion we had is, I mean, we could certainly, one of the questions I asked is, on the EAW and the AUAR, I think the AUAR, they were pretty comfortable with the 50K. We do have substantial reserves in place in the EDA, so you're sitting on around $1 million, and we've talked about that, even with some of the stuff that we're talking about using it for. Should there be additional costs that are like, you should probably include this, there is the EDA reserves to use. One of the questions for you tonight was, well, you could increase the levy. So on the EAW specifically, 40K was kind of their baseline. If there are other, like a traffic study or phase 1 ESA or those, like a wetland delineation that we required, you'd have to include those. Again, we're reviewing our own EAW. It's a little interesting. So if somebody's creating it, we're reviewing it as the RGU. One of the things Greg and I talked about today is maybe bumping that to 50K for the EAW. And then if there's, again, additional expenditures that come out of the state reviewing, because anytime you do an EAW or these, it has to go to the departments at the state and a certain list for review. So if there are additional items that come out of that, use of the reserves would be a possibility. Otherwise, you could increase the levy, but your reserves are in such a place that it's a good use of it economically.
For sure.
Makes a lot of
It's
sense.
kind of a one-time, almost a capital, but
Yes.
not capital type of purchase, so.
So you'll notice that money's been shifted a little bit. We reduced like the promotion line by quite a bit because we don't use that as much. A lot of that's just for swag and materials. It was kind of maxed for a number of years because maximizing the levy. At this point, it's shifting some of those dollar amounts around to put more in the professional services line as well for EAW and other items. And then you'll notice on dues, licenses, and subscriptions, again, an increase of 1,000. SmartGov, that includes, and just some other of the membership dues that increase on an annual basis. So generally not like huge increases in all the other categories, it's just shifting around and trying to tackle these environmental documents that we have to do.
Sure. Sounds good. Any questions for Jacob on the EDA? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'll touch on debt service. So that's the chart with the nice bar graphs on there. So we currently have the two issues of debt outstanding, the 2021A, which was primarily related to the street reconstruction projects, and then the 24A lease revenue that relates to the building, police and city hall building. So for pay 27, just a slight increase up to the 1.5 million. We do have, we are sitting really good on the legal debt margin side. The 21A bond is the only one that applies to the margin, so your debt limit is set at 3% of your taxable market value. So as of last year, we were at 38 million total, offset by the 5 million. So still have around 33 million of legal debt margin. So really good for a city of our size. I think really the story here is we do have capacity as we roll out to 2032. You know, as that 21A looks to get paid off, we would have the ability to either issue additional debt or kind of restructure where those levy dollars are levied and used for, as we really focus on you know, kind of solidifying our capital improvement plan. So looking at streets and some of the others where we could reposition some of that levy and be strategic on it, but have some levers to pull. Really, as we looked at, even with the 21A issuance, to fall off in 2031 was very strategic on, you know, the current Sherco plans and what was happening across the street. So depending on where that all navigates, we might have some additional time there, but good to have that opportunity out there in the future. So really the story there looking really good on the debt service side. So currently, after 2026, there'll be 5 million outstanding for the 21A and then another 5.5 on the lease revenue. So both very some nice short structures for that debt to be paid off soon. All right, so then just to wrap up, the overview summary. So there's that the smaller chart that Lori had touched on the front. Really, that's, you know, that's the, you know, circle back from what Lori had initially discussed. So they're looking at an operating levy within the general fund. Actually, I won't call it within the general fund, but we did, I will note the EDA, we did switch that. You would have seen it on your tax statements this last year. We switched that from a special levy to just part of the general levy, and that was strategic because of transition aid. That special levy would not qualify under the transition aid bucket. So we do issue that just under our general levy. Even though it is outside, we do allocate those funds directly to the EDA fund. It does come in through that levy. So overall, looking at increasing from the 6.2 million up to 6.4, and then the overall at the 2.4%, at least the way it's structured now. And then we will be revisiting just the remaining capital items within there that are not identified in blue. So that'll be the pieces that we bring back: the streets, community center, and then Pebble Creek Golf.
So the insurance, so last year when we saved the 10%, we didn't apply all that to the budget last year. We kept some of that, knowing that we were gonna see an increase. We didn't wanna see it, you know, ski hills and cliffs. So we did not account for that then this year. That part that we put aside last year, that's not accounted for in this current budget then, correct?
Correct. So, you know, the underrun last year that we would have had, say, on healthcare, would have been transitioned over the future improvements fund. So any excess over our minimum fund balance threshold. But it also allowed for the steady levy. So without carrying forward that additional budget, we would have seen some much steeper increases in our current levy. That makes sense?
So it moved, okay. It moved
Yeah.
future
So
improvements,
it allowed us to set some additional funds aside. So if we did have some overruns, we can always bring them back from future improvements, but also allowed us to keep that levy a little more steady, because if we would have included that 10%, our levy would have dropped, and then we immediately would have said, oh, here we go again, and pull that in. So You know, if we did have some budget pressures and, you know, there would be options to pull some of those reserves and offset some of those, but, you know, based on where the levy is currently sitting, you know, there's not a lot of, you know, need to offset some of those changes with those set-asides. But there may come a time where, you know, we could pull from those with future, if we had some future pressures on some of the levy.
Right, so really, theoretically, we're just looking at a actual 4.2% increase because that 10.8 was left there. Otherwise, we would have saw a legitimate budget number at 15% higher.
Yep.
Oh, you're talking just for health insurance?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep, that's a good way to think of it.
15, assuming they come back in at table max,
Right.
which,
We get that number next month, you said,
Healthcare? Forget timing of that.
August, September, maybe.
September.
but if we got it set at the max, the only place it can go is down from what we budgeted for, or equal or down, so.
Yeah. We're hopeful. They prepared us for the full 15 when we met with Gallagher, just to kind of walk through. Mainly because they were really competitive on getting us in, and with healthcare costs where they're at, but still at that, it's not. We were able to, kind of that compounding effect, we were able to absorb so much of that decrease that it really take multiple years. Really puts employees in a good position, and the city. I mean, it is a big number. I think it's, you know, almost $1 million now.
Yep.
So it's a big number.
Yeah, it was north of 900, I think, when we, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so that's the overview summary. Can definitely take any more questions there, but really just laying the groundwork for next steps. So August 5th, we'll have the exec session where, as I mentioned, you know, governmental funds, any kind of remaining stuff, we could always circle back on certain pieces, but we'll have the Pebble Creek Golf operations as well as the capital. Second meeting in August, we'd circle back with the capital for streets and BCC. And then September 1st, preliminary budget levy approval. We could consider that depending on where we're at. That could be an opportunity. A lot of times, we're just getting the values from the state around that time, so it may make sense, you know, for that September 15th, but we'll definitely see where those, you just never know where the appeal process comes in, that if they settle sooner and we have good data and we're comfortable, we could definitely look at the first meeting, but would always roll to the second.
Yeah, I'd like to make sure we have that number, especially knowing that we have that flexibility of going to the 15th, once we have it.
And the county's always coming in with some final changes, you know, even before that prelim, so, you know, we'll have their data, but the county still, you know, has some moving levers before Bonnie's sending me, you know, their preliminary estimate, for where they're at. And we usually try to be conservative with that, so we'll pull it down a little bit just so we don't, get surprised, but.
Have they received their number yet?
Yeah.
What they want to appeal, or?
Yep.
Okay, and they've started the appeal process?
Their appeal due date was yesterday.
They didn't miss it, did they?
Yeah, I don't think so. They even allowed some
Brother can dream, man, come on.
some organizations, there was even a comment that they extended the time frame for the appeal. I didn't know that was a thing, but they can get extensions on when they could decide if they wanted to appeal. So probably won't get data super quick. We may get an update just to confirm that they appealed. We'll get updates through the virtual site, so we might get gives you a summary of where all the businesses are at.
Do we know what the prelim number was up, down, like the base number?
Nope, don't have no data yet, really just have dates.
Okay.
Really just have dates. If I could break through that barrier with the state, that would be awesome, but there's still a black box of how it all happens, so. Yeah.
Double secret probation, huh?
Yeah.
All right, any final questions for Mark?
Awesome. Well, thank you all for the time tonight. Thanks for everybody for being here.
Thanks, everyone. I know that's a lot of work, and thank you for what you did.
Gosh, you didn't even present tonight. That's soldier. Dreaming about that hole in one, yeah,
Oh, yeah. Gonna have a t-shirt on for the next one that
yeah.
I went to Pebble Creek and all I got was this hole in one.
Yeah,
What's everybody doing right now? You,
yeah,
everybody?
yeah. If they got stars, you get a,
Oh, yes, that's too much, okay. All right, well, we'll adjourn the executive session at 7:09. Thank you, everybody. That was a lot of numbers. Numbers are hard.